Almost all mammalian species navigate the world wearing a permanent biological coat. They survive freezing winters and blistering summers without ever changing their physical exterior. Then there is our human lineage, a largely hairless bipedal primate standing in the middle of this biodiversity. We traded a natural layer of insulation for an artificial one we must manufacture. If you step outside on a cold morning without a fabricated layer of material, your core temperature will eventually drop. Why did we lose our natural protection only to spend subsequent millennia replacing it? The answer begins long before the first garment. It starts with the physical mechanics of hunting on the open African grasslands. When early human ancestors moved from shaded forests into bright and arid savanna environments, they adopted a demanding foraging strategy known as endurance or persistence hunting. This involved tracking and steadily chasing prey over long distances during the midday heat. Most savanna animals can sprint very fast, but they cannot pant effectively while galloping, as they run their internal temperature spikes. If a hunter wearing dense animal fur chases an antelope for several continuous hours, that hunter will likely experience heat exhaustion first. Natural selection strongly favored genetic variations that kept early humans cool under physical stress. Over time, our ancestors shed their heavy fur. They replaced it with an intricate internal network of 2 to 4 million eccrine sweat glands. We became highly specialized biological moisture emitters. When your sweat glands release liquid onto skin evaporation, draws excess thermal energy directly away from your rapidly circulating internal blood supply. This remarkable cooling mechanism provided immense physical endurance. But a hairless body built to release heat creates a severe geographic vulnerability in colder climates. As human populations eventually migrated toward higher latitudes, they faced freezing temperatures and harsh seasonal winters. They needed a way to temporarily disable the specialized cooling system they just evolved. Tracing exactly when humans started wearing protective coverings presents a rather difficult archaeological puzzle. Organic materials like animal hides and plant fibers decay rapidly when exposed to soil microbes. They rarely survive beyond a few thousand years. Researchers had to find an indirect biological clock. They discovered it in a rather uncomfortable place: the genetics of common human lice. The human body serves as a host habitat for two distinct populations of this specific parasite. Head lice possess microscopic physical claws adapted specifically to grip round biological hair shafts. They live entirely on the human scalp. Body lice evolved a slightly different physical anatomy. Their claws are adapted to grip flat fibers. They cannot survive on smooth, bare human skin. They require the seams and folds of clothing to lay eggs and maintain their body temperature. This strict biological requirement essentially means body lice could only establish a stable population after humans began wearing garments consistently over time. By analyzing mutation rates in modern louse populations, geneticists tracked when these two insect lineages diverged. They found body lice separated from head lice roughly 80 to 170 millennia ago. A parasitic insect mostly indifferent to human progress unintentionally preserved the biological origin of our wardrobe. However, this genetic timeline reveals a major inconsistency in the traditional story of early human migration. The evolutionary divergence of the body louse occurred tens of thousands of years before modern humans migrated out of Africa in large numbers. If clothing was invented for freezing winters, why did it become a daily habit while populations still lived in warm climates? The available evidence indicates that retaining body heat may not have been the primary initial motivation. The first wrapped hides likely served simpler functions, providing basic protection against a harsh, abrasive environment. If early humans spent days tracking wild animals through dense, thorny scrubland and sharp savanna vegetation, a basic leather wrap creates a reliable shield between bare skin and things that scratch. But an animal hide draped over a person rarely remains purely functional for very long. Humans are intensely complex and social primates. We instinctively organize ourselves into hierarchies and groups. We constantly communicate our specific position within them. Long before archaeologists found evidence of structured garments, they uncovered clear evidence of intentional body decoration. Mineral pigments like red ochre frequently appear in sites dating back 200,000 years. Our ancestors were actively collecting these specific minerals to paint geometric patterns directly on their skin. Transitioning from painting a color on your chest to wearing a specific decorated animal hide represents a relatively small cognitive leap in communication. Once a person puts on an animal skin, others begin to read it as a signal. Wearing the hide of a dangerous apex predator might communicate physical courage or exceptional hunting proficiency. A specific leather drape might indicate community leadership. The material stops functioning merely as a shield. It becomes an early form of visual language. For thousands of years, these early protective garments likely remained quite loose and roughly structured. A heavy skin draped over the upper shoulders and temporarily tied with raw leather functions reasonably well in a mild evening breeze. But a loose, unsealed drape fails almost completely when exposed to winds in subzero climates. Cold air easily penetrates the large open gaps and quickly flushes out the warmth trapped underneath. To survive a deep and prolonged glacial winter, humans require a continuous layer of insulated air, just like zipping up a fitted winter jacket. It mechanically seals at your wrists and neck, preventing your heated metabolic air from floating away. Building a fitted garment out of thick hide requires a specialized form of prehistoric engineering. Around 50,000 years ago, a critical shift appears quite clearly in the Eurasian archaeological record. Inside a remote cave in the Altai Mountains, researchers found a polished bone needle. This preserved artifact represents a profound conceptual leap. A sharp stone awl punches through thick leather, but a needle with a precisely drilled eye allows someone to carry a continuous thread directly through dense material without tearing it. This mechanical tool enables controlled and repeatable stitches. Sewn seams allow large, flat, stiff animal hides to be tailored closely to curved human limbs. They close the gaps where thermal energy escapes. Those populations who possess this specific sewing technology could effectively maintain their safe internal core temperatures. They could successfully hunt in frozen environments that would otherwise induce severe hypothermia within hours. As society's expanded clothing technology underwent another transition. Processed animal hides provide highly effective thermal insulation, but they become extremely heavy when wet. They also require constant, successful large-game hunting. 30,000 years ago, in a Georgian cave, researchers discovered preserved fragments of twisted wild flax. By weaving flexible plant threads into a plane, humans engineered materials lighter than heavy animal leather. Researchers noticed something quite striking about these fibers. Many were intentionally dyed in various distinct colors. Even during the depths of the Paleolithic era, people deliberately altered the visual appearance of textiles. Adding dye to a woven thread does not improve its physical ability to retain heat. It only changes what the garment communicates. If woven garments simply optimized for thermal regulation, modern cultures would appear much less visually diverse. Populations living in broadly similar geographical climates would simply adopt the exact same utilitarian uniform: a thick insulated fur coat in the Arctic and a breathable woven tunic near the equator. But humans immediately used textiles for social signaling. We developed specific garments for symbolic religious rituals that remain completely impractical for daily physical farming. The clothing you consciously choose every single morning continues this exact same historical process. You select materials to balance your core temperature, but you also select items signaling your profession, your chosen cultural identity, or your current mood. You are navigating the exact same intricate dynamics as an ancestor wrapping a stained hide around cold shoulders beside a Paleolithic fire. Our distant ancestors lost their dense natural fur to chase prey across a sun-baked savanna landscape. But that resulting biological vulnerability eventually forced us to engineer an entirely artificial second skin. We transformed a simple physical barrier against cold into an ongoing and endlessly complex visual conversation. Every woven thread and sewn seam we wear acts as a historical reminder of our adaptation. We managed to survive the harshest earthly environments by inventing the exact protection our bodies lacked.